Hey there, Coach Edwards here with LacrosseGoalietips.com and LacrosseGoalieUniversity.com. Welcome to another video, a little bit of a longer video today. Doesn't matter if you're a new goalie or you're an experienced goalie, the question comes up, why is lacrosse goaltending so damn difficult? This week, I was on the phone with one of my coaching clients who's a rather experienced goalie, Division I recruit potential. It's kind of looking good, looking that way. But the question came up like, why is this so difficult? This seems more difficult to be good at lacrosse goaltending than it is to, let's say, be good as a soccer goalie or a hockey goalie or any other sport. And so, I would start by saying that I think every sport, when you get to the elite level, or you're trying to, learn a sport that has elite potential, it's difficult, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of good stuff to learn. But one of the things that happens specifically with lacrosse goaltending is that the way we get into the sport of lacrosse is different than the way you get involved in other sports where you might be a goalie. So let me explain. This is very popular when I talk to parents, especially. They really resonate with this. They go, I get it now. So this is going to make a lot of sense once I describe it to you. So first and foremost, in the sport of field lacrosse, we have no real downgrading, downsizing of the goal at the younger ages. So really immediately we're put into a 6x6 cage, no matter if you're in third grade or if you're in high school. Now, for years, I've been a proponent of scaling down the goal, at least making it 5x5, to take away some of the changes in like stance and learning that's caused by going into a larger cage. And in some places, I know coaches have made custom nets, but primarily because the sport of lacrosse, although it's growing and it seems big in some places, it's still a relatively small sport. So making nets that come in a 5x5 is not really a viable option. So here's what happens. We take a goalie and we throw them right into a 6x6 and we say, go. And what happens is, because now we are basically covering or asking a young or a small athlete to cover a big net, the idea that we can then change our stance, or should change our stance, and maybe stand with the stick a little bit more vertical, a bit above our head, things like that, that changes the way we learn. Now, also, what can happen is that we put a young goalie or a small goalie or a new goalie into a big net, and we say, all right, let's go out there and there's a attackman coming from the side of the net, and if that goalie runs out and basically defends that player at a young age, they're going to make a save. I was working with another one of my coaching clients, a dad who has a young female goalie, and this goalie, the first video clip he sent me was nothing but this goalie running out and basically attacking an offensive player and coming up with a save. And you could hear all the parents on the sideline going, "Yay, great!" And I told this dad, I said, "Listen, that's a good habit that works now, but later that's really going to hurt her, because what's happening is she's able to kind of get by with a tactic that works at a younger or a less skilled age, but doesn't work when that goalie is older." And that I run into that a lot with both men's goalies and women's goalies, who, when they were young, they were able to kind of come up with a better, a tactic that worked at that age. But then later, they now had spent all this time developing what could be seen now as a bad habit, but got them by when they were younger, right? So lacrosse goaltending is difficult because we can get by with some of these things when we're young or new, or the level of skill that we're up against is not as good, but then later those skills change. And that's different than, let's say, ice hockey. You never see a young ice hockey goalie skating out of the crease to go attack, like the other team's forward, because that forward can't get the puck in the net. We just don't teach that there. Same thing's true with soccer, where soccer, you have smaller nets, right? And then you're basically defending a smaller net. Now the interesting age is when you get to like a U13 level, where you now put athletes on a full field in a big net, but you might see a goalie who's tiny, and now they're trying to defend the top of the net. But really, there you have a different in kicking the ball. Like it's not like a lacrosse stick where we can have young athletes slinging the ball really quickly at a young age, doing really good things with the stick, and now that goalie is in trouble because that U8, U10 kid can sling the ball top corner, and that goalie now has to defend 2 feet above their head. So, but even if you have a goalie who is a large goalie, and now they're in that cage, this gets me to my next point, which is protection and padding. So lacrosse goaltending is really difficult because when we have an increase in skill in shooters that comes on very quickly, and more so than any other sport. In ice hockey, for instance, you don't see kids really making great slap shots at U13. You may, but you do see it at the high school level. But the bottom line with like using hockey as an example is that puck is always on the ice. In lacrosse, the ball's coming from anywhere, right? Kids can fake, kids can throw underhand if they want to. They can throw behind the back, they can throw between their legs, in addition to traditional, just a straight up shot over the shoulder, right? So a goalie that comes into the sport and looks at the best goalies in the sport, those goalies wear very little protection. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons, why. One is it looks cooler. Two, it feels cooler. It's less bulky. I mean, we're in a spring, summer sport, so wearing a lot of gear doesn't feel great. So if you can get rid of it, you can. But primarily, the best goalies in our sport are facing shooters who are extremely accurate. All right. So at the elite high school, even the elite junior high school, but definitely in college and into the pro ranks and in the international ranks, guys can shoot the ball and pick a corner like that, all right? Especially if they have time and room. So a goalie is primarily not stopping shots with their body, they're stopping shots with their stick. And so that allows you to basically say, well, I'm going to pare all this stuff down, and I'm not going to weigh myself down with extra equipment so I can move my hands to the ball and try to save everything with my stick. Now, what you'll learn from me is that I believe that the lacrosse goalie position has completely forgotten about what I call the base save percentage. The base save percentage is basically your body, as you move forward, like as I move at the camera here, I'm covering up more of the whiteboard behind me than if I stand back here, right? So base save percentage is if I come out of the ball, there's less for you to shoot at, right? And one of the things to consider is that when new goalies or young goalies look at elite goalies and see that they're not wearing anything, well, that's great for them because the shooters they're coming about are really are good, like are really accurate. But at those younger ages, balls can hit you. And what happens is if you're unprotected and the ball hits you, you develop fear, okay? If you've seen my 3 videos at Lacrosse Goalie University, the 3 free videos at lacrossegoalieuniversity.com, I talk about this, the cloud of fear and how it affects a goalie's learning. Well, if you've come into the sport and you're not wearing enough and you're fearful of the ball, lacrosse goaltending is really difficult because you are now worried instead of being confident. Whereas a hockey goalie rarely has that issue. A soccer goalie rarely has that issue because there's so much space and the ball's big and they got padded gloves and fluffy and things like that. It's just a different experience. But for a lacrosse goalie that comes in and they're not protected when they're young, what makes lacrosse goaltending so difficult is that there's now more fear involved. All right. Even in a sport like tennis, like another implement ball sport, tennis at the younger ages, kids develop fear of the ball they play a smaller court, but they use a bigger ball that's actually softer, so to take some of that fear away and get the confidence up. So, what makes lacrosse goaltending so difficult is a combination of all these things. So whether you're an elite goalie who's wondering like why you have certain habits that you're trying to break, it probably comes down to the things that I just mentioned. The way you got involved with the sport, the way you're protected in the sport, what you're trying to accomplish, and how you're trying to kind of get through it. The size of the net you played in maybe when you were younger, or the amount of protection you were wearing as you developed, those all make the sport either difficult or easy. So I wanted to discuss this today because whether you're a goalie working on your own or you're a coach or a parent working with a young goalie, the habits your lacrosse goalie has, the development they have, whether they feel like they're having an easy time of the game of lacrosse or they're having a difficult time playing lacrosse, it usually comes back to these types of things, like how they got involved in the sport, the size of the net, who they were up against, what they're getting away with when they were younger. But even if you take a goalie and you throw them in at the high school ranks, and they maybe didn't have that experience, and they're a big goalie, and they're fitting, the cage is an appropriate size for them. Well, now you're dealing with protection issues and fear of the ball issues, and because the shooters are accurate, they can fake more than any other sport. Even a soccer player can't fake with their feet like a lacrosse player can fake with their hands. A hockey player can maybe be able to pull the puck from their forehand to their backhand, and that's a big swing. Might be like a 8-foot, 10-foot range that goalie now needs to move. But it doesn't compare to lacrosse because the puck is always on the ice, right? As opposed to a lacrosse ball that can be moving. You can be shot from 360 degrees around the shooter's head. So that's why lacrosse goaltending is so damn difficult. And if you're having a hard time with it, or you're having a hard time as a coach working with a goalie, these are things to consider as you're working with that goalie. You got to kind of back it up and see what's the foundation of this lacrosse goalie. Where was there maybe a crack in the foundation? What do you need to fix now in order to help that lacrosse goalie move forward? So, longer post today. I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, leave me a comment below. If you got a question, you can email me, coachedwards@lacrossegoalietips.com, or fill out any of the forms available on the site. But by all means, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, and share this. Would you share this with a goalie, a coach, or a parent who needs to see it, who may be having issues with their goalie? But listen, last little thing. In Lacrosse Goalie University, I talk a lot. I go into depth in all the blog posts that you see on the site. We go into more depth, really take a goalie from A to Z. It's the most robust coaching resource for lacrosse goalies, their parents, and coaches around. I hope to see you on the inside there. But I hope you enjoyed this one today. Send me a note, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.